All right. Well, hello and welcome, Team ET. Welcome to our bi-weekly live broadcast. It's great that you've been able to join us yet again. And today, probably for a while now, I haven't had the opportunity to do this because we've been releasing so many programs. But today is my chance to have a rant. I'm going to have a little bit of a talk about what's been something of a thorn in my side for a long time in my career. And that is this invisible gap, might be the word, I guess, that exists between the operations, so the profit and loss element of a corporation's operation, and the leaders responsible for that, and those great folks sitting in HR. Now, I say great folks because I'm not here to make enemies with anybody. I'm going to be a little bit controversial perhaps today, but at the end of the day, I want to highlight something that I've seen through my 45 years, and that is the failure for corporations to really embody the full potential of HR despite HR's efforts, despite changing of terminology. If you listen to people like Dave Ulrich at the moment talking about human capabilities, now it's the right thing, it's the right direction for sure, but are we really bridging the gap that exists between what the HR fraternity believe is happening and what is the reality that's occurring within the operational management leadership of business? And my own observation so far is there may be some shift in the right direction, but it's way too slow. And it's taking a long time. It's creating a lot of frustration. And I want to bounce around a few ideas today that have occurred to me predominantly in the last 12 months or so, maybe 15 months that I've been doing the podcast. And I've had the opportunity to speak with some fantastic people, both from the operational side of business as well as from the HR side. And it's really started me thinking about how do we resolve this divide, as you can see. So I'm going to give it to you from my perspective. Now, I'm fortunate in the sense that in my career, I've had the opportunity to sit on both sides of the fence. So I feel that I'm in a very strong position to be able to speak with some confidence on behalf of both entities. So with that said, before we jump into my little rant and go further, I thought we'd just do a very quick recap on the fact that yesterday and the day before, Tuesday and Wednesday of this week, we launched our 2-day Facilitation Mastery Challenge. And for me, I had a great time. Hopefully those that attended had a great time, but I love talking about the topic of facilitation. We introduced 5 phases to becoming a facilitation master, and then went deeper on phase 1 and phase 2. And you'll see at the end of today, I just have a slide to introduce the fact that in September, we'll be releasing our Facilitation Mastery Mastermind, where we will actually go into all 5 of those phases and really leverage the collective genius within the participants to look at how we can maximize the value that we bring to the event, whether that's a meeting, a workshop, a conference, major gathering, as facilitators, as leaders who are required at some stage in their career to be able to facilitate these events and deliver on the expected outcomes. All right. So that's what we started with, and you've seen me writing about it this month. You've probably read some of the articles in the newsletters. We've done a series of blogs so far. We've been promoting this challenge, and now we're coming to the end of the month, and we're going to start to look at the mastermind. So overall, it's been a busy week, but it's been a great week. One of my favorite topics, facilitation, and I really love the opportunity to chat with like-minded people. So thank you for those that attended, whether you joined for free or whether you were a VIP challenger, like you can see on the screen. It was a wonderful time. So thank you. But with that said, one of the things we talk about is nailing the opening session. And so let's try and get some curiosity, pique a little bit of interest with you as we move into my rant about this whole divide between HR and operations. So here's my equation. Now, I'm not going to give you the rationale behind this equation, but the first thing I want you to do is look at it from a mathematical standpoint. I believe mathematically it is correct. So if I was to say 45 equals 5 plus 90, 95 plus 100, 195 minus 50, and so minus 150, 195 minus 150, I believe correct, is 45. All right. Well, here we are, shock horror. When you understand what the formula is related to, you'll understand why. I also say I've been wrong. My equation is wrong, and what I'm going to help you unpack is the reason during the remainder of my little rant talking about operational leadership and HR's leadership and merging the two, how to bring the two together. So that's what we're all about today. I'm not going to give you the answer to why it's wrong just yet. I'm going to save that for a little bit later, but that's the direction we're heading in. So hopefully I've got your interest. Here we go. I'm going to start with 3 questions. So Team ET, these are for you. And I really want you to look inwardly. Now, if you're sitting in HR, apologies, because these questions are targeting the operational leaders. And most of Team ET are operational leaders. They're sitting as emerging talent, mid-level talent, or senior executive talent. And the majority of those people tend to be in the operations. However, if you're in HR, you can still ask the questions, just reverse it when it says HR, ask it towards operations. All right, so with that said, here's your first question. And we really want you to be honest here, team. There's no use beating around the bush. I really want you to start to question and challenge yourself. What is your view about your current HR team? Now, I don't mean you need to go out and share this with the world. This can be something you think to yourself. Keep it to yourself. I don't want to create enemies. However, we have to be clear that what we believe is reflected in our actions, in our behavior. And therefore, if we believe that we don't have a very strong opinion or we don't see value in HR, you can almost guarantee that you will see that reflected in your behavior as a leader. All right, whether it's in what you say, whether it's in what you do. So, first question. Hopefully you've answered that honestly. There's no use lying to yourself. Second question, and this will, of course, reflect how you answered question 1, but the second question for you is, how do you view them? Do you see them as true business partners? Now, HR, the whole HR industry has worked very hard in the last, let's say, decade, maybe not quite that long, but approximately, to try and rebrand themselves, to try and create this marketing proposition that says they are business partners. They are partners to the operational business. Now, only you will be able to make that decision for how you see it, but that's the question. Are they really your business partner? And how could you challenge that? Well, you could say, well, are they there when the going gets tough? Are they staying up late at night? Are they sitting in the board meetings, arguing, debating, giving their input, suggestions? Or are they the silent partner when things are not going well? During the highs, maybe they're more visible. During the lows, maybe they're not. So that's the challenge to you. Where do you see them? And therefore, the third question leverages that. And it says, do you see them more as a support function rather than as a business partner? And by that, what I mean is, you know they exist. You know they do certain things. And when you have a need for their services, just like other service support entities, you get in contact with them. You seek them out and you look for their support, their help, their input. But that's not day in, day out. That's more the exception rather than the norm. Whereas question 2 is the norm. They're there beside you day in, day out, regardless of what's happening. Question 3 is the opposite. You only see them or you only engage with them yourself when you have a need. Now, sometimes they might approach you, but for the most part, you work independently. So there's your 3 questions to get your mind focused and thinking about this topic. How connected are you as an operational leader? Or if you're in HR, how connected are you as a HR leader with operational leadership? If you're operations, how connected are you with the HR operation? All right. So hopefully that's got you thinking as a starting point to where we're going. All right. Now, pardon me because there's going to be a little bit of a rant, but I just want to really drive home this point that I believe there is still a huge divide. And I'm starting to unpack in my own mind some of the reasons why. I've found through self-reflection, looking inwardly at myself when I was an operations leader, looking inwardly at myself when I was leading learning and transformation and working with HR within the HR fraternity. What was some of the things I actually realized now, stepping back, looking at the holistic picture, looking at the interplay between the parts from a systemic viewpoint? So here's another question for you to keep your mind focused and thinking. During your most recent leadership training program that you attended, all right? So hopefully you are training. Hopefully the company continues to develop. If not, maybe that's another question you should be asking yourself. But I'm going to assume, I'm going to take the higher ground here and say that you're working for a company that is developing you, and periodically you have the opportunity to attend development training. All right. So my question here is, the last program that you attended, how visible was the HR team? Did you even think about HR when you're at that program? Of course, if not, why not? All right. So reflect back, think about it. I can't answer your question. Now, if they were there, absolutely fantastic. Kudos to your HR team. If they weren't, maybe there's a reason. Maybe they weren't in the same vicinity. Maybe they are in different locations, whatever it might be, right? But if they weren't visible to you in some way, shape, or form, then there's a good chance that the connection you've made in your brain between the learning and your operational activity excludes HR. Right? So the experience that you take away from that, you probably didn't make any connection to the fact that HR was involved. Right? So you don't see them as part of your journey. All right, let's keep going with this. How much involvement, given that they probably weren't there for the majority of training programs, but given if they're not there, do you think that they actually had any involvement in the development of that program? And therefore, in your development? That one's probably a little bit easier to answer. But what's the impact from their involvement in your development? Do you see them any differently with that realization? Probably not at this time. Okay, let's keep going. Lots of questions for you. If I asked you, make a list as long as you can of all the functions that you believe your HR team plays within the organization. So I'm going to take a sip of coffee and let you ponder that for the moment. How many different functional activities do you believe HR are involved in within the organization? Now, if you're in HR, you might want to challenge yourself to make a list of how many different activities can you think of that occur within the P&L function of the organization. So really challenge yourself. See how long you can make the list. Did you come up with 10 items? Maybe they weren't too difficult. Could you stretch yourself to 20? How many did you get? Well, here's a company that I recently worked with, and the result that the HR organization came up with when exploring their own engagement in the organization. 72 different work streams, 72 different areas of impact where they were engaged within the organization. Now, I have to admit, I was quite blown away when I looked at that list. But I've examined the list, I've worked with the list, I've worked as part of that group, and I have to agree. They are engaged in all of those 72 work streams. So hopefully you can see the question pool is building. I'm trying to get you to open your mind. If you're an operational leader and you don't know many of those 72 work streams, how is it possible that you're leveraging your potential HR business partner as a real partner beside you? Because you don't even know what they do. And for the HR team, we've got to challenge you in exactly the same way. And this, by the way, for the HR people listening, this is one of the biggest criticisms in my 45 years that I've heard from operations about HR. You just don't know what we do, right? Now, HR, you can equally claim that about the operations, I'm sure. All right, let's keep digging. I love digging. So, operations team, back to you. When was the last time, as it says, if you ever in your career, made the effort to spend time with the HR group and actually understand what it is that they do every day? What are the challenges, the pains, the hurdles, the hiccups that keep them up at night, that create their stresses? And just a small warning for you. Are you part of that headache? So HR, just like in operations, face challenges daily. Now, if you don't understand them, how can you be a partner to them? How could you ever claim to be empathetic and compassionate towards your colleagues who just happen to work in the HR function? Now, HR, you don't escape this little equation. When was the last time that somebody from HR spent time in the operation trying to understand the business more? Now, I don't mean just on a high level business understanding, how does a business operate? I'm talking about the business that you're employed, the company that you're employed in. How fully do you understand that company's business? The area where they make their profit, the area where they go out and sell their product and their services. HR, how well do you understand that? Again, as I said, in my years, more than 30 years in my career in operations, the number one biggest complaint I heard was you don't understand what we do. Now, if I'm honest, in HR, you have the same claim about it. All right, let's keep going. Let's keep going. I'm enjoying. So, leaders, have you ever received in your leadership training program, in your development throughout your career within the organization you're with at the moment or previous organizations, did you ever get the opportunity to study any psychology modules, any neuroscience, any philosophy? And of course, the question that I ask as a result of that is, if you answered no, then why do you think that is? Isn't one of the largest parts of your job, and perhaps the most critical part of your job, leading your people, leading your team, working with your colleagues shoulder to shoulder? Aren't you surrounded day in, day out by people, whether they're called stakeholders, whether you call them clients, employees, team, suppliers, management? Aren't they people? And wouldn't it be smart that we know a little bit more about some of those core topics? Now, for sure, these are specialty areas, there's no question. And I'm not asking you to become a psychology major or the next world's greatest philosopher. But wouldn't it be useful, don't you think, that if one of your biggest challenges is managing your people, you've probably heard me say many times, leadership would be so easy if we didn't have to manage people. It's one of the biggest challenges that we face as leaders day in, day out. And yet, what exposure have you had in your professional development towards really understanding not just surface level, but actually understanding a little bit about what makes people tick, how we think, why we think the way we think, why we feel and behave the way we behave. Let's keep going. Still more questions. So I'm going to guess that the majority of the leadership programs you want on, depending on the industry you've worked in, of course, all right, that you've probably covered topics like marketing and sales, IT, finance, admin, safety, quality, and the list goes on. Well, as you can see the question on the screen, aren't these individually also specialty areas? And yet, for whatever reason, the program developers, the corporations, the companies we work for, and the HR groups see that as more necessary than your ability to really understand people. All right, let's keep moving. We're on a roll, team. We're on a roll. So let's expand a little bit on that thought for a moment. If we were to look at business models, and there could be a million different business models depending on who you want to follow and which university you come from. But in my experience, I've looked at a lot of them over my years, particularly in the last third of my career. And I've developed programs with them. On average, if not even higher, I would say that every business model shows people as least as 1/3 of their strategy, at least 1/3 of the acknowledged impact to the business comes through the people. And it's further supported by the fact that every year, year on year on year, countless organizations exist that help companies work with their people. They conduct employee surveys. They generate reports. They talk about engagement. They talk about the great resignation, the great talent reshuffle. I'm talking about the great divide between our knowledge that people are so functionally critical and foundational to an organization. And yet, for whatever reason, we don't seem to realize the need to work with the people that we put in charge of managing those 1/3 focus of our strategy. And then we complain that this leader isn't very effective. We talk about dark triads, the narcissist leaders, the Machiavellianists, the psychopath leaders. Is it any wonder? A, they don't probably understand themselves very well, but the little understanding they do have of themselves, they believe that the rest of the world that they're looking after and looking out to has somehow the same sort of rationale. And one of the learnings that we need to have as leaders is that each and every person is unique. No two brains are identical. I believe. Siamese twins, not sure, but no two brains are identical. So with that, maybe you're saying, this is a bit too much, Wayne. That's not actually true. You're stretching this to the outer limits, and the reality is somewhere more closer to the middle. You know, in my career, I've got a lot of tools that I've been given. I've been to countless team building programs. Yes, I'm sure. And congratulations. I'm not diminishing any of that. However, that gives you a means to an end, what you believe to be the end, without helping you understand the beginning. It says we're going to help you to become more effective and efficient as a leader by showing you how to manage your teams, get them working together. We're going to give you some tools that you can put in your toolkit that you can leverage and bring out from time to try and make this a functional reality. And to some extent, these things work. But do you fully understand what's going on? Do you have the necessary knowledge that when Tom has a bad day, how you can support? We talk a lot in today's world around being an empathetic leader. We talk a lot about the need to be vulnerable and transparent. We talk a lot about compassion, kindness. These are all absolutely critical functions. We talk about psychological safety. We talk about diversity and inclusion. We talk about equity. All of these factors are definitely part of the equation. But do you have the basis from which to build and intertwine those factors? So what's my, well, hopefully, I guess you're thinking, hopefully I have a point to all of this. I've probably painted a fairly bleak picture at this stage. But I wanted to try and emphasize the reality that I see and I've seen during my 45 years, that a lot more can and needs to be done before we will ever start to truly bridge that great divide. Before operational leaders will truly start to value their HR business as a true colleague that stands shoulder to shoulder. Before HR can start to claim to be able to do that, they also need to change. Now, this is my perspective. I'm sure there are many people out there saying, you know, Wayne, you're 20 years behind the times, and that's not the reality. Now, I'm generalizing here. There's going to be companies that are outliers on this bell curve for sure. There's going to be companies that have got this so well refined that life is truly fully harmonized. And kudos to you. I'm not saying it's not there. I'm not saying it's not possible. In fact, I'm saying it is possible and it needs to be there. And for those that are already there, then we should look at you as the role models to help us get more guidance and move in that direction. But I'm going to give you two components in a moment that I believe are missing for the majority of organizations around the world. And if we could accommodate these two solutions, I believe we will move so much quicker to being so much more effective as an organization. All right. So back to my equation. Do you remember my equation? Well, the 45, I think you probably have it already. The 45 is the 45 years that I've been working around the world with different companies, with different cultures, in different industries, and this is my career experience. So the 45 years is my personal journey. Now, in that 45 years is the rest of the equation. The first part, the 5 plus 90 plus 100. Well, over that period, I've worked on 5 different continents in 90 different city locations with more than 100 different cultures. 195, if you're adding it up. On the other hand, as somebody who has always been involved in training, learning, developing others, I did a review and I can identify as a minimum 50 programs that I've developed for leaders. And I've delivered personally these programs more than 100 times. And you might be saying, well, Wayne, that's a positive. And yes, up until I started to have this epiphany, about this great divide, I also believe that was a positive, not a negative. That I have to be honest and have a little bit of self-reflection, some inner navel gazing at myself here, and hold myself accountable as much as everybody else who I'm pointing to. And say, you know, in those 50 programs and in those 100 or more than 100 opportunities to deliver, you know what I didn't do? Was I didn't take my own medicine. Sure, I gave lots and lots of support about how to become effective and how to lose that big S off your chest as a leader, how to build the teams, how to use the tools, how to motivate and inspire. Do you know what I never did in any of those programs that I developed or in any of those times that I facilitated those workshops? I never took the time to go deep enough to give people the base level understanding about how people really operate. So I got it wrong. Just as I believe the majority out there of organizations, of universities, of business schools, of corporations have got it wrong. And never the twain shall meet between HR and operational leadership until we start to understand what it takes for people to actually lead others. And that requires that we start to understand how people think, how their emotions are driven and become predictive, how their behaviors are triggered through these things, and vice versa. So, as I said, this is my little rant. So, believe it or not believe it. Now, here's one of my solutions. And it's been around a long, long time. So before you start switching off and jumping up and down and saying, Wayne, what the heck are you talking about? We know about job rotation. Fantastic. but I'm yet to see a company that is doing it correctly and consistently and involving HR as part of that rotation for leadership. So sure, there's lots of companies out there that do job rotation. And there's lots of organizations who rotate their leaders. And you know who they rotate them through? They typically rotate them around the operational, the profit and loss streams, divisions, so that you become a well-rounded operational leader. You understand what a business requires to run. But what are you missing? You're missing that 1/3 of the equation. The people understanding. You don't go to work in HR typically. Why? So it's an experience-based job rotational equation. Fantastic. But we're not rotating fully around the whole organization. Now, again, outlying companies, those that are doing this, absolutely fantastic. You are the role models. You are the ones that we need to look to. But for the majority, never the twain shall. So there's solution number one, I believe, is when you have a job rotation, and every corporation should and needs to have some form of this, I believe, for leaders. You need to incorporate HR into it. Now, here's the second half of this equation, and guilty as charged on both counts, job rotation as well. I believe that we also need to include, as part of the leaders development program, these 4 base level, entry level. I'm not talking about the need to go super deep, but I'm believing, and it's definitely going to be part of my development programs in the future, that we need to incorporate Psychology 101, Philosophy 101, Neuroscience 101, and Coaching 101. If we want to create leaders of the future that understand individuals and can lead people more effectively. All right. So, agree or disagree? That's your perspective. I've shared mine. I would love to hear your thoughts on the issue. I'm sure I've tried to condense stuff. There's a lot of things that could have said here that we haven't touched on. We've skimmed the surface. But essentially what I'm saying is we need additional base level modules coupled with the practical experience, the job rotation, and I would suggest that needs to be 12-month rotation through different functions, not 12 months in HR, 12 months through different functions that includes HR. All right. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can watch more on this in the coming months, and I will share about how our programs may evolve as we go. If there's anything you would like to communicate with us, you can always connect with us at support@coachingforcompanies.com. That's the number 4. I hope, as a very least, I've got you thinking. Whether you agree fully, you disagree fully, that's your choice. But my aim today was to express some things that have been on my mind and to share them with you, to hopefully get you thinking as well. So if I've achieved that, then before we wrap up, I mentioned we have a facilitation mastery mastermind. It's a virtual mastermind. This is our third for the year. It starts on the 25th of September. We have 3 different time options. So you can do a 1-day program, you can do the program split over 2 days, or you can do the program split over 4 evenings. You'll have that option. Anyway, this is the follow-on or the follow-up from our Facilitation Mastery Challenge, our 2-day challenge that we just completed yesterday. This takes it to a deeper level. This connects you with other participants who have experience and exposure with facilitation. We leverage off everybody. We do hot seat coaching. We do breakout room activities. We share more theory. We cover the 5 phases of facilitation mastery. We give you a 100-page workbook to work through with us together, etc., etc. We have refresher videos. We have pre-workshop activity. We have post-workshop activity. We have group coaching. So it's very, very, I would say, comprehensive, very immersive. And now I've issued myself the challenge after today that I have to think about how will I incorporate more around psychology, philosophy, neuroscience. Nice challenge to have. Hope everyone's on that journey with me. Look forward to being part of your journey as somebody who's founded coaching companies. This is what we're all about. We're all about helping you evolve in your career to transition from where you are today to that next level. And how do we do that? We do that through our development programs and our coaching. We have free material and pay for material. It's something that I'm extremely passionate about. I really enjoy what I do. I'm living my dream. I'm living the purpose that I've set. My values are aligned. So this is my perfect storm. I really hope that we can share some time together. As we move to the end, all I want to say now is let me get my head out of here so you can see the word live. So thank you for being part of today's ET Project Live. Really enjoyed having the opportunity to get a lot of this off my chest, to have my say, to have my rant. Thank you for listening. Thank you if I've opened up at least a snippet of an idea, given you a broader perspective so that you can go away and play and grow as a result. So with that, Team ET, thank you, and we will see you again in 2 weeks. Bye.
So what are you waiting for? Hit the subscribe button below and click on the bell icon so I can pop up in your feed occasionally with a great tip for your ultimate growth.